Okay, in any van build series, this is probably the video that everybody waits for. I've just done a spreadsheet and added up all my costs. So I didn't initially produce a spreadsheet, and I probably should have done. What I did, I just used notes on the iPhone, and when I was buying stuff, I just used to fill a line in, roughly what it was, how much it cost. And sometimes I forgot stuff, sometimes there was stuff that I didn't use. So I guess this is probably within, let's say, 500 quid. So, so the van initially cost me 8,400, and it was a really good van, some really good history. This van, for most of its life, just travelled backwards and forwards to Portugal with some furniture. So the van cost me 8,500. I had to tax it and insure it initially. I've not counted that in with the cost of doing it as a camper van, because that's an ongoing cost every year. I did a remap on the van. I took it from 125 to 160. That was 250 quid. And I have to say, that was well worth doing. I weighed my van at work the other day, and pretty much empty, it was 2.8 tonne. When it's empty, 2.05. So I've added about 750 kilogram. I didn't fill the water tank, and there weren't 3 people in it, because generally I'm not going to travel far with 100 litres in the water tank. One thing I do need to check is that I've put the water tank on here. Well, I've just checked, and I have. Okay, so the remount was 250. Furniture board, but this is when I've bought furniture board, it's listed in other listings. So under furniture boards, I've got £501. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all of it. Other wood and ply, £806. So that is the wood for the floor, the Celotex, some battening, the roof lats, battening in the sides, framework for the bench seat, etc. So yeah, £806. Wood is very expensive, so that's like, you know, nearly £1.50 on wood. Fixings, so that's generally screws, some brackets, £236 on screws. Sealants, so this is generally mastic, Sika. I included Lanagard in there, so that was spraying underneath. Clear silicone, which I've done around the fittings, £150. Sika is quite expensive. Carpet and glue, so all this stuff. So carpet, trim fix, some wadding, £384. Electrical items, this is a lot, but included in this is the Renogy unit, you know, the charger, that was 130 quid. Solar panels, just looking at the most expensive items. Battery, all the C-line stuff, so the switches and sockets I've got in here. I decided to go for C-line rather than having a higgledy-piggledy mix of sockets and switches, but they are expensive. The inverter, Wi-Fi, that was 250. Lithium battery was 330, but that was an absolute bargain. Charger, garage rails, I'll put some stuff in here that's not really electrical. Speakers, anyway, there's £3,352 worth in the electrical items category. Plumbing, so this is all your pipe work, fittings, drain hoses, the shower mixer, water filter, the pump, the water tank underneath, which was 430. Pump and accumulator was 295. Kitchen water tap fittings, silicone in the shower, 30 quid's worth of silicone in there. Altogether in the plumbing section is 1,267. Heating, this section is an absolute bargain. So I had to buy a new Truma display because it failed, and then my Truma 6 kilowatt, and that altogether is 625, but that would have been double if I'd bought it retail. Flooring, so the Altro flooring, 125 quid. Insulation, so this is all the insulation, so this is the closed cell foam that's stuck on the bodywork, the sound deadening panels, Celotex, and the Reflectix, and I sound deadened the front doors as well. £332. Lighting, there's a lot missing off this. So this is generally everything to do with lighting, and I have missed some LED strips off here, got to have. The trackers on here as well, £276 on lighting. But as I say, there's probably 100 quid missing off that. Other items, so these are all different things that I didn't want to categorise individually. In here is the windows, so the 676 quid in windows. Tow bar electrics, 180 quid. Fridge, 340 quid. I think the hob is in here somewhere. Hinges, loads of stuff like that. Wood glue, stain, a Russell Hobbs cooking pot that I bought that'll run off my inverter, tie down hooks, all sorts of stuff. So there's £3,100 in there. Consumables. So this is scissors, masking tape, drills, spray, sealant finisher, paint rollers, stuff like that. £296. The roof lights, so that's the opening roof lights, the mini hecky and the micro hecky, and an extension I needed for the micro hecky, £265. Tools, so these are all tools that I've bought to do this van. Also in here, for whatever reason, I put the awning, so the awning was 280 quid. I got a dual angle drill, mainly to do the cupboards at the back, to get into the tight corners. That was 120 quid. But this is like scribe tools, drills, hole cutters, etc. And there's £1,280 in that section. Gas. So my gas install, I had a lot of the stuff already. So all the gas flow, the refillable system, I already had all that because I've had it on previous caravans. I've not included it as a retail price in here. The total cost of the Gaslow kit that I've got on this van is probably in the region of, nowadays, I don't know, probably 600 quid. One thing I've noticed on here, I've not got the bullfinch fittings that I've added on the van. So there's two bullfinch fittings, which are probably about 30-40 quid each. There's the mains inlet socket and there's the water inlet socket. But anyway, under gas I've got 60 quid, and that is just ancillaries really, like bottle straps, nozzles, things like that. Interior, exterior fittings, so these are stickers, beddings and towels, the bull bar on the front, spotlights, etc, etc. I don't think on here I've got the actual main sticker kit that I bought for the van, which was, I think, about 120 quid. Cushions that I bought, these cushions actually, 220 quid, but I think these are an absolute bargain. Some chairs, awning cleaner, cupboard hinges, furniture pads, stuff like that. So there's 1,248 quid in there. So the total of all of those is £14,557. So the total with the van is just about 43 quid less than 23 grand. 14.5 grand. I didn't expect that. I think anybody that does anything like this though, it's probably a shock how much you end up spending. I didn't ever attempt to build this van on a budget. I didn't ever intend to build this van on the cheap. It was basically no compromise. So, you know, everything in here, I always said I wanted it high end. Everybody that's looked in it is very impressed with it. And so I think that that is reflected in that. Greg Virgo spent 15 grand on his van, if you've watched any of his videos, but that was quite a few years ago now. It'd be interesting to know what a sheet of Zebrano would have been at that time, because now it's £200 a sheet. So straight away, if you're building a van, you're going to need 5 or 6 of those. And so straight away, that's 1,500 quid. He had a truma in as well, but that's what it looks like it is, 14.5 grand. I think it's worth it. The system that I've created, like the electrical system, for sure, you know, decent sized water tank. This van is more than capable of being totally off grid. You could go pretty much anywhere in this van. Not got a massive amount of road clearance, but this van can go anywhere and doesn't need to be on electric hookup. So there you go. Comments below. All right, so how do you build a van to a budget? First of all, I guess you probably need to know what your budget is. So let's say you're going to buy a van for X, and then maybe you've got, I don't know, let's say £5,000 in the bank, or, you know, money that you've decided you're going to spend on a van. I think the one thing I would say with that is it's going to take a few months to do. You know, if you've got disposable income every month, it's quite easy to add to that budget. You sort of take your choice. Don't belittle your abilities. With practice, anybody can do anything. I've never ever done anything like this before. Everybody that's seen it has been very complimentary. Almost looks factory. Building a van on a budget. So first of all, like I said, probably decide on what you want to spend. Looking at my broken down budget for different things, I think you have to be very disciplined with different areas that you spend your money. I think the biggest area that I've spent money on is the electricals. There's a lot of systems in this van, and that was my choice really. And it's not surprising. It was a case of, when I was putting the wiring in, it was a case of, you've got to stop somewhere. I mean, there's lights, LED strips, spots, power supplies everywhere in this van, USB sockets, they're everywhere. And that's what I wanted to do. There's a lot of areas in this van though where if I was showing people where you could cut down, but it is all personal preference. You know, do you want to cope with a couple of water containers under the sink with, like, you know, a 15-litre water container for your fresh water, and then another one that your sink empties into that you have to go and empty? I think after having caravans for many years, I already knew about how all these systems worked, and so I didn't want to compromise on any of that. You know, at the end of the day, you can get a van, put the basic amount of insulation or carpeting on the walls, stick a camp bed in there, portable camp stove, maybe a porta potty, you got yourself a camper. I think it just comes down to, I think the problem with the internet is the more you research stuff, the more you think you've got to do. This is probably not a very conclusive video. You need to write a list down of things that are important to you, that you want the least hassle with. So maybe the fridge. You get what you pay for with fridges. I've got a 12-volt compressor fridge in here. It uses 60 watts. You just switch it on and forget about it, and it's got a freezer in it, and it's just easy, isn't it? My Truma, a lot of money, but I've got a simple control up there which I can set delays on. I can set a timer on it. I can set different levels of hot water. I can set different levels of blown air. I can set different temperatures. So it's like, it's no compromise. It will do anything, but it comes at a price. A lot of installation, a couple of problems that were caused by me, but now it's sorted. You need a decent heating system in your van. You don't have to put windows in. A lot of people are really scared of putting windows in and think that they have to put windows in. So, you know, don't spend the money on windows, spend the money on seat swivels. If you put seat swivels in, you would make more use of the cab. So there you go, really. That's about as clear as I can be.